Little bit catchy. Makes me laugh. I ran into that whistling in my music library, and it stuck. We used to whistle a lot on the farm. We were working on the farm. We didn't have Walkmans and radios. So I grew up on a farm outside of Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, actually north, about 2 hours north, way out in the boonies. It wasn't. It was good farmland up there, but I was raised up there as a kid, and we if mom and dad came home and we had a big cardboard box and we could play in it, or maybe we'd jump in it and slide down the stairs. We had a kind of a stairway upstairs. That was fun for a kid. And our music was our whistling. My dad used to always whistle. He was good at whistling, and he'd whistle, and the cows would come. He had a certain whistle. The cows would all come for milking. Well, we'd milk one anyways, but the days of living on the farm, it was good. I remember all those things. I was not a Jehovah's Witness, so it was an unadulterated childhood. It was a good childhood. I had a good father and mother. They stayed together their whole life. They were married. We celebrated their 40th anniversary. And they weren't religious. They were good people. They didn't smoke, didn't drink, didn't party, none of that stuff. They were just good, old, honest farm people. And they knew the values of life. And I think that getting back to that has helped me a lot, recovering from being a Jehovah's Witness. Because when I became a Jehovah's Witness, of course, I moved away from the farm, moved into the big city, Edmonton, the big city, million people. And you move around a few congregations here or there. You try a few things. There's a need out here, this congregation. So we moved up north for a need thing, and your whole family falls apart when that happens. It's just the way the organization's designed. It's the elders book. We all know that. Now, today we're not going to beat up the elders. We're going to say hi to everyone who's on with us today, because we have an interesting program ahead of us. So Joe and Fran, you're here, I think. You were waiting. Post-cult Higgy, hello from England. Welcome to the show. Watch Me Tower, welcome to the show. And thank you, Watch Me Tower, for some of your news articles we use. You really seem to find them. Glad, hello from Glad. And Judge Flems, hello, Judge Flems. And Beverly, welcome back, Beverly. Great supporter. 60 Aquino, hello. Hello, everyone. Okay, well, we have a great show ahead of us. We're going to get in. Oh, we have more coming. Look at that. Carrie Leakham. Hi from Canada. If you haven't already signed our petition, if you go into the descriptions below, we're looking for Canadian signatures. And the petition's almost there. We just need 1,000 signatures, and then we can do something with it. And if you've already done it, thank you. Okay, now, Beverly, you're from Canada too. No? But she gave a clap. Okay, California maybe, my good wife says. We're going to move forward. I'm going to share my screen with you. Where are we? There we go. Now, I made this easy for myself. I actually prepared the presentation. It's Geoffrey Jackson, honor the superior authorities. It's right from JW.org. This, if you go on to JW.org right now, it's right there. We kind of keep an eye on this, but they're talking about World War. I kind of talk about it in the video. They talk about this, and then you go to the what's new, and this is where we get this. Kind of have this screen blowing up a bit, but there we go. Yeah, so this is the talk that we're covering, Geoffrey Jackson. We're going to actually get right into it, play the first. It's a 10-minute video. We're going to play about a minute or two right off the bat. And what I want you to look for is how he's talking about honor. And think about Norway. Think about what's going on in Norway. And now he's talking about honor superior authorities, Romans 13:7. These are scriptures that I would use at them. I wrote about these scriptures in the book I wrote about at them. Honor the governments. Start working with your governments. Start looking at the governments in a different way, because the Bible says that Jehovah is working through the governments. So let's see what he has to say. And it's interesting because of Norway, what's going on in Norway. Could you imagine? Well, we read some of the papers, we read some of the news. The local Jehovah's Witnesses are really upset. The European Ben Elders, he's really upset. But what's there to be upset about? Like, if we're supposed to work through the superior authorities to good, like when it comes to shunning, the evil practice of shunning, Jehovah is working through the superior authorities, and the superior authorities are saying, "Oh, this is, we don't want this no more. It's child abuse." You see, Jehovah is interested in the children. I agree with him, but I don't know if he really knows what he's saying. Like, let's listen to him. This is an interesting talk. Okay, honor the government. And the second one we're going to cover is another one, Norway court costs. We got the final Norway court costs. We're going to give you that too. We will release these videos probably tomorrow, but you're going to get this in advance here. And let's see what this one is. Also look at what he said at the annual review. And
His people are well known as being law-abiding citizens, persons who pay taxes and who do not rebel against the government. If someone were to ask you what scriptures they're based on, I'm sure all of us would cite Romans 13 verse 1. So let's turn there together to refresh our memories on what this verse actually tells us. Romans 13 verse 1. Let every person be in subjection to the superior authorities, for there is no authority except by God. The existing authorities stand placed in their relative positions by God. And then looking at verse 7, it says, render to all their dues, to the one who calls for tax, the tax. So this is the scriptural basis for us to pay our taxes and to be law-abiding citizens. We realize from verse 1 that this involves our faith and belief in Jehovah God, because we realize that the superior authorities are accountable not to us, but to Jehovah. So if Jehovah allows certain authorities to remain in control, then we wait on Jehovah, because any abuse of their authority is answerable to God. But there could be a challenge in this for us, because although we may be well known as neutral with regard to politics, what else does verse 7 tell us that we need to do? Well, notice toward the end of verse 7, it says, to the one who calls for honor, such honor. So not just neutrality, not just submission, but being willing to give honor to these individuals who are part of the superior authorities. Now, why can that be a challenge for us? Well, put quite simply, it's easy, isn't it, to honor someone if you don't know what they're up to, if you don't know them personally and you don't know their horrible personalities. Also, if you're not personally affected by decisions that that person makes, then again, it's a little easier to honor that person. But today we find ourselves in the midst of a world that has an overload of information. The media, TV, radio, they promote the personalities of those who are part of the superior authorities. So we get to know them a little better. And perhaps there's also false information that can be given to us that may form opinions. Additionally, some of the decisions made by governments do personally affect us in many different ways. So even though we face all of this, what do the scriptures tell us? Well, we have to show honor, such honor, to those ones. Well, that may seem a challenge for a Christian. But first of all, we need to remember that the word honor, just like the word love, can have various meanings in different applications or contexts. For example, loving your enemy is a different feeling to loving your parents. So in a similar way, we need to ask, what is this honor? The honor mentioned here does not mean admire or imitate or idolize or even approve of the conduct of these ones. No, it means giving due respect because of their authority and position. 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 15, remember, reminds us, if we're asked to give a reply as to why we believe a certain way, or if there are issues raised, how should we answer such ones? Well, we should do so with a mild temper and deep respect. So whenever we say something about the superior authorities, it's good for us to keep in mind the way that we express ourselves.
Welcome back to JW Discussions. Now, we just took a look at one of the recent talks. It's just a few days old that Geoffrey Jackson gave. So what do you think? Do you think that Geoffrey Jackson is going to make some changes? Okay, I got my mic a little closer now. But yeah, we were listening in, and he really talked, I don't know, that's the way I'd kind of look at things, honor the governments. We're Romans 13, 1-7, it's quite clear. I've used that scripture a lot, actually. And it says to honor the governments, to relax a bit. Let the governments, follow the governments. What are they really saying to us? Of course, for taxes, it talks about that, pay the taxes and so on and so forth. Now, Geoffrey's going to get into it here and talk about, and he did a little bit. He says, what if you disagree with what the governments say? What if you disagree? What if he says that the governments have to answer to Jehovah, and that's what the scriptures do say. So what if you disagree? He says, honor the governments if you disagree. And he also said that we don't get involved in political stuff, protesting and any of those things. That's not what Jehovah's Witnesses do. We simply honor the governments. So let's take a look at how he concludes this, and then we're going to take a peek at what happens in court here. But let's look at the display here. Now, if you go to Jehovah's Witnesses website, this is what you see. Is this a world war? Is world war inevitable? I thought it was going to be a lot of stuff on there. I just want to show you this really quick. There's nothing here. It says this right here. This is it. There's nothing there. Is a war that is coming. What is the battle? However, Armageddon will save mankind. There's nothing there. Really. So anyways, it's very light. It's almost like they have maybe AI or something just writing some of this stuff. We thought about that too. Same with this, what does the future hold? I thought that would be a whole pile of stuff in there. Look at how much stuff is in there. Nothing, just that. It says, have you ever wondered what the future will be? The righteous will possess the earth. They will live in it forever. Psalms 30. They quote this one Old Testament scripture. It's a psalm. It's like poetry. When the Israelites were walking through the wilderness, it was poetry they sang. That's it. Nothing. And they just lead you to a bunch of other articles. They just have a thumbnail and a picture. So we went a little further. You go a little further on their site and you come up with some of these things here. These little talks. Kenneth Fludden, learn from errors. Maybe they're trying to learn from errors. This is the one we're looking at. Geoffrey Jackson, honor the superior authorities. That's timely. Right after Norway's done, just on the same day Norway's done. It was on the 19th they released this. It's the same day that the Norway court system was done. And so we watched the first part of it where he talked about honoring superior authorities.
Worldwide, Jehovah's people are well known as
And
being law-abiding.
we watched about up to
anything,
here.
any
I'll
evil,
just
any lust,
get my place
he
here.
felt
Okay, I thought this part was important because Geoffrey wanted to make sure the audience knows that you can honor the governments even though you don't approve of it, especially in Norway. You know, you imagine the whole, all the Jehovah's Witnesses, they don't approve of that. And here's what he's reinforcing.
hate or idolize or even approve of the conduct of these ones. No, it means giving due respect because of their authority and position. 1 Peter chapter 3 verse 15.
So he goes on to quote a few scriptures. Okay, so he quotes a few scriptures, tries to parallel the modern day Jehovah's Witnesses to Paul going to jail unjustly, of course, and how Paul was patient and respectful to the superior authorities. Good talk. Like I thought he gave a good talk to his audience because his audience might be upset. It depends on what happens in Norway. They're upset. They spent $500,000 on legal fees in Norway fighting the Norway government. And the Norway government had made a decision based on the protection of children. So I ask you guys as the audience, would Jehovah want the protection of children to come first before a religious organization's freedom of rights as a religion? What do you think Jehovah wants? Okay, that was a quick decision. Yeah, you and I agree. Protect the children, of course. And isn't it more so about, aren't we living under Jesus' umbrella right now? Is he not the ruler? And how did Jesus treat the children? He put the children on his knee and he looked around at his apostles. It'd be like looking at the governing body. That Jesus would come and put the children on his knee and look at the governing body and say, well, be like the children. Humble yourself. You know, and that's kind of really what it's about. It's about the children. And all of the religions, all of the governments worldwide know that, except the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses. They believe that it's infringing on their freedom of religion for them to stop shunning children, because this is really over the shunning policy, the disfellowshipping, baptizing minors. So children get baptized even at 6 years old, but 10 years old, that's not uncommon. 13, 14, 15, very, very common. These are times of the life of a child, and we know that today. And that's why the psychology is telling us that the child's not ready for that big of a decision that could ostracize them if they change their mind a few years later. Let's say they turn of age and they decide they want a higher education. They want to go to university. You see, they will get shunned because they're baptized. They're not supposed to take higher education. Let's say they have some blood disorder and they need a blood transfusion. And they decide they want to take a blood transfusion. They're going to get shunned and disfellowshipped for that one. That's how these rules work. The governments are saying, no longer are these rules valid in our country. You don't qualify as a religion. Quite simply, you don't get the charity. You don't get the money. That's quite simply what it is. But Geoffrey Jackson has to do damage control, of course, the governing body, to what's going on in Norway. So they give these kinds of talks, and they cannot have their people. See, everyone's looking at this religion. Everyone, Japan, Spain, all the countries are looking at Norway, and they want to know how they're going to react. So they have to put out a message that somewhat honors the governments. They have to, or else they're really going to lose out. And the Bible does say that. It's very clear. So there's two things here. Is Geoffrey Jackson waking up a bit, or is he following the Bible? Why is he doing this? I think it's about money, really, but I think it's too scriptural. They have to follow the scriptures. And you can be in a country, they kind of like to lump it all up and make it look like the guy, the person, the political element. They try to blame it on a person. You see, the fact of the matter is we live in a democratic society. The Watchtower, their headquarters is in a democratic society. And a democratic society is quite simply where the people vote in the leader, the governments. So it's the people that actually vote for this. So the people of Norway, they have voted in this government and they support the government in deciding who qualifies for a charity and who doesn't. You see, it's the people, and the people support the child welfare services, who have to spend millions of dollars looking after victims that come out of religions that shun, religions that ostracize, and religions that discriminate, and religions that go on to hate us. We're simply fathers or mothers of children within the religion, perhaps. But you see, they have taught my children to actually hate me. That's what they have taught. And we've demonstrated that on so many talks. So now the governments are saying, no, we're not going to fund you as a religion. This is what you do. This is what you're doing to children. You're splitting up families. So now this Norway thing's happened. Now they don't want a situation on their hands. So now they have to put out a gentle talk, kind of. So they use an example of a government that they influenced in another country. But you notice they don't name the government. They don't name the country. They've done this. They do this all over. They just throw out illustration after illustration of stuff. Really hard to validate, to go and check all this stuff out. But let's see what he says here.
Experience that we had many years ago. It was in a country where Jehovah's Witnesses had been banned for well over 30 years. And finally, the government registered Jehovah's people. So up to that point in that country, we were not allowed to have kingdom halls or a translation office. So the branch immediately arranged to purchase some property that we could use for a kingdom hall and a translation office. Well, everything went through except one thing that was needed, and that was the approval from the government for us to finalize the purchase. Well, the brothers hired a worldly lawyer to help us with organizing this. And over a period of about 18 months, we saw how the government just played.
Now, they hired a worldly lawyer, and they hired a worldly lawyer in Norway. And they hired a worldly lawyer in Pennsylvania, Matt Haverstick. He's the Catholic diocese lawyer. So they're using lots of worldly lawyers. Why? Well, maybe they don't have enough lawyers within their ranks because they don't believe in higher education and it requires a certain amount of training to get that. Maybe that's part of the reason. Or maybe part of the reason is because through that lawyer doesn't have the perceived Christian conscience that their JW lawyer should have. So if the worldly lawyer says something that's a little bit twisted, a little bit off, and they know how to do this, they know how to twist things and turn things to make the Jehovah's Witnesses look like victims. And this is what they're trying to do with the Norway case. They went on and on about the Holocaust, how they're Holocaust victims. There's 6 million Jews that died up against 14 to 1700 JWs. And I'm not making light of any of this stuff. There was 3 million Catholics that died fighting that war. So there's two ways to look at that, two ways to skin that cat. When we look at all the Canadians that have died, hundreds of thousands of Canadians went across, died in that war as well. What are they? Are they worthless? They helped to stop Hitler. So were they victims? Yeah. The whole world was held captive. So the whole world had to get together. And that's democratics, that's politics, but we don't want to talk about that here. So, but these guys are talking about it, how they got in bed with the government and it worked to their favor in this country. So anyways, we're gonna speed this up. We're gonna go ahead here to the end.
I will never forget your answer that you gave me. You do not want to embarrass the government. So what's the point? Jehovah's people aren't interested in rioting and protesting, but we do what Romans 13 verse 7 says. When honor is called for, we give honor to the superior authorities.
Okay, so they give honor to the superior authority. So we're going to go back to the news studio here. And honor to the superior authorities, honor to Norway. It's a good talk to give, I think, on that day. You know, anybody from Norway, and they're watching Jehovah's Witnesses. They're watching what they're saying. Now, one thing I wanted to say about Geoffrey Jackson, it seems like the organization is using him, or he is choosing to be the spokesman for them in a couple of different ways. I wanted to go back to the Australian Commission just to take a look at what he's doing there. We're going to do that after we look at Ben Elder's talk, but we're going to look at that, and we're going to also look at what he said at the annual review and what's being said. But anyways, let's look at Ben Elder's talk. This is an important one, and this will show. It's about 4 minutes. I crunched down a 30-minute talk to about 4 minutes. And this will show you the legal side, what's going on in a courtroom, a guy that's sworn in, and we're going to get the whole sworn in statement and everything on him. But this is kind of how they talk to the governments, those ones that they honor, those ones that they don't get involved in political elements, rioting, or any of that. Where Ben Elder is actually part of a company. Watchtower made a new company in Europe to go out and lobby for freedom of religion. Freedom of religion. He's lobbying with other religions, the JWs. That's what this company's about. The judge didn't know much about it, so he asked about all the qualifications about the elder, Ben Elder. And that's the guy's name, Ben Elders, that's running this for JWs, and we're going to take a look at it right now.
Could you also tell us a bit about...
Okay, I'm going to change the speaker on that. Just hold on. Okay, we're going to go right into the Norway court case, and we're going to look at about 4 minutes from Ben Elders.
Could you also tell us a bit about yourself and what position you have and background?
Yes, my name is Ben Elder. I currently live in Germany, originally from Scotland. My background is I've been one of Jehovah's Witnesses for probably longer than I remember. I was baptized when I was about 13. And currently my role is I'm director of an office called the Freedom of Worship office that's based in Germany.
I didn't quite get the name of the office, the director of
Freedom of Worship.
Freedom of Worship.
And in conjunction with that, one of my roles is a representative of the European Association of Jehovah's Witnesses.
Okay. Do you have a legal background?
I don't.
You don't. What kind of professional background do you have?
The role I have is a director of this office, so an office manager.
Yeah, but you have an educational background?
I was a tradesman, actually, in building.
Okay, please go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honour. We want to express our grave concern with the decisions of the County Governor and the Ministry of Children and Family Affairs to deprive Jehovah's Witnesses in Norway of state grants and, most importantly, registration as, in other words, Jehovah's Witnesses are a Holocaust victim group. So accordingly, Jehovah's Witnesses throughout Europe and the world were shocked when the county governor and the ministry disparaged their entire religious community, alleging that adherents use coercion, intimidation, and that parents employ psychological violence and negative social control against their children, citizens, using broad and, in addition, such state action legitimizes prejudice and hatred and even persecution of a religious community. We recently saw evidence of, I'd like to mention that the conclusions of the county governor and the Ministry of Children and Family Affairs are not only contrary to European Convention, but also offensive and degrading to every one of Jehovah's Witnesses. In a free and democratic society, it is insulting for the state to disparage an entire religious community, alleging that they're acting under pressure, fear, and intimidation, and that they exercise psychological violence and negative social control against children. And all this on the basis of a few complaints and a cursory look at the beliefs of Jehovah's Witnesses. They are a dubious second-class religious denomination. Deregistration by the state sends a signal that Jehovah's Witnesses are a dubious second-class religious denomination. The European Association of Jehovah's Witnesses, therefore, respectfully, Your Honour, asks that the theoretical rights of hypothetical children, referred to by the County Governor, not be allowed to outweigh the actual rights of real young people throughout Norway, who have made a conscientious and personal dedication to their God. History has taught Europeans that the state has an obligation to secure true religious pluralism, which is an inherent feature of the notion of a democratic society. Therefore, public authorities should be particularly careful not to denigrate a religious minority group. Religious minorities already fight a hard battle for survival in many uncompromising political regimes in the four corners of the world, that the court prioritise the rights of thousands of Norwegians not to be stigmatised for following the Bible over the hurt of a few vocal activists who have successfully exercised their right to leave. History has taught Europeans that the state has an obligation to secure true religious pluralism, which is an inherent feature of the notion of a democratic society.
Well, it's the state has an obligation. That sounds the Apostle Paul talking in the Bible. No, I don't think the Apostle Paul talked like that. The Apostle Paul was reasonable. You know, the Apostle Paul was in jail. Ben Elder, he wasn't in jail, but he was sure going after the governments that they made the wrong choice. And they are violating all of Jehovah's Witnesses' freedom of religion, their human rights. They are a minority. They're a Holocaust victims. They really, Ben Elder brought themselves in as victims. Jehovah's Witnesses are the victims here. And what they did is they blamed it on three. They called out three activists in court. And they said, yeah, this is just isolated. This is three activists. It's no one else. So my challenge to everyone out there watching is, if you had situations or you know of situations of young people being abused in the religion, young people being disassociated, disfellowship, maybe they got baptized too young and did something wrong and had to get disciplined at a young age. You see, they say it doesn't happen. They say this is just isolated activists speaking out. This is not something that is part of our religion. We don't have that problem in the religion. So the only thing I can think of is that we have to speak out. We have to put comments in after comments in after comments in on these websites to wake up the world and let them know that this is not isolated incidences. This is happening all over the world. If Jehovah's Witnesses want to go up against Norway and say, okay, well, let's look at all these other cases around the world, then fair is fair. Let's look at all of the cases around the world about ones that are isolated as children, as young people in that organization, and then shunned, baptized young and then shunned. So there's so many experiences of this all over the world. So if they want to use world experiences, we can use the whole world. And it's happening in Japan. The Japan group are speaking up. There's all kinds of situations going on right now. There's victims associations, all kinds of victims coming out of the religion. They're forming associations because they're afraid to talk. So once the victims can talk, they get into closed groups, then they can feel comfortable enough, and they start undoing some of the indoctrination from the religion. Some of the harmful indoctrination, like killing yourself over not taking a life-saving medical treatment, like that includes some blood. There's nothing wrong with that. So yeah, there's a lot of work that this religion has to do. Is Geoffrey Jackson waking up? Well, when I look at Ben Elder's talk, and if the governing body supports that, these guys aren't waking up. They're doing damage control. And this is just big corporate business doing damage control, just like they did in Australia. Let's take a look at what they did in Australia, and then we're going to look at what they did this year. Okay, let's go to Australia. Okay, so I got this clip from WTS Archive. It's online. They have a site. They have a little over 1,000 subscribers, 12 videos. And they did a lot of this when the archive was happening in Australia. And they referred to the Australia archive, number 29, they have it categorized as in that archive. And Norway referred to that archive. So all of this information around the world is being collaborated and used from one case to the other. So this is all important when it comes to doing the right thing. And the governments are what Geoffrey Jackson said, they're following God's direction to help the children. I think we could all agree that if the rules of yesterday didn't help our children, in fact, allowed our children to be violated, abused sexually, and allowed those crimes to go hidden and covered up within Jehovah's Witnesses, the Catholics. It started with the Catholic religion, with a lot of the priests. And that was back in the 80s, the 90s. So now it's Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons. We've seen that recently, and the Mormons are really doing a lot of cover-up. So it's all these big religions. We see this happening. So the Royal Commission, well, just get off the screen. We'll watch it here for a bit, and we'll see what the first few minutes say.
My name is Geoffrey William Jackson.
In September 2005, you were appointed as a member of the governing body of the Jehovah's Witnesses.
That is correct.
You can earn hundreds of thousands of dollars in the next 30 days, and I will help you do it. I will guide.
How are decisions made, by which I mean, are they made only by consensus or by majority, or is there some other system you adopt?
Ahead of time, each governing body member, with prayer, by means of prayer and reading the Bible, then tries to see how the Bible would affect any particular decision. So then in our discussion, generally from my experience, which has only just been the last 10 years, in most cases, it's unanimous.
And if it's not, then it would be carried by majority, is that right?
That is the case. So Matthew 24 verses 45 and 46, and this is how the governing body views their role, what they try to do.
Do you, as members of the governing body, regard yourselves as being appointed by Jehovah God or under the capacity or authority of Jehovah God?
What we view ourselves as fellow workers with our brothers and sisters, we have been given a responsibility to guard or to be guardians of doctrine. So just the same with elders are referred to as being appointed by Holy Spirit. As you probably are aware, we believe that means that when an elder is in harmony with what the Bible says is required of an elder, then he is appointed by Holy Spirit.
So the
same is true with the governing body.
And do you see yourselves as Jehovah God's spokespeople on earth?
That I think would seem to be quite presumptuous to say that we are the only spokesperson that God is using. The scriptures clearly show that someone can act in harmony with God's Spirit in giving comfort and help in the congregations.
Okay, that's all we're going to play from that for now. But it talks about, is it not true? The governing body is saying that they are the only ones. Jehovah's Will, lesson 19, who is a faithful slave? It is a small group of anointed followers of Jesus. The slave is closely identified with the governing body. Watchtower, June 15th, 2009, page 21. Jesus, the master, in the illustration did not say that there would be a multitude of slaves scattered throughout the various sects of Christendom. Instead, he clearly stated that there would be only one steward or slave whom he would appoint over all his belongings. So this is what the Watchtower says. It says something contrary to what Geoffrey Jackson is saying and has said in the Australia Commission. So again, I come back and I ask the question, what's happening? What's happening with Geoffrey Jackson? Is he waking up? Is he changing, or is this the governing body? Like, he couldn't answer under oath. He couldn't say, honestly, he couldn't say that they were the only ones. But yet the literature says that they're the only ones. So when they sit in their little meeting and who writes this literature, is it because Stephen Lett and David Splain say they're the only ones, or what's going on behind the scenes? So what makes me curious is this year, what's going on, what's happening this year. I'm just going to play just a couple clips from the annual meeting, and it's going to end up with Geoffrey Jackson.
We don't have the answer to those questions. You hear that right? We don't have the answer to those questions? I thought we did.
And also, the governing body is neither inspired nor infallible. And so it can err in doctrinal matters or in organizational direction.
What's the answer? We simply don't know. We can't be dogmatic. And we shouldn't be dogmatic because we don't know. Leave the judging to Jehovah and Jesus. They will always do the right thing, the merciful and just thing. Of that, we can be absolutely confident.
We live in a world filled with media streams, social platforms, and devices.
Well, are they doing that? Are they actually leaving the judging up to Jesus and Jehovah? I didn't hear that from Ben Elders in the Norway court system. I heard him talk about them being victims and that it's all the fault of the apostates. You see, we didn't even get it all the way through there. If you listen to the full 30 minutes, they go on and on about the apostates and how it's just isolated cases of apostates. So again, I petition the audience, put in your comments. We enjoy seeing them. And most of all, the comments help drive these videos. It helps make a point to the organization that this isn't 3 isolated situations in Norway. This is in fact happening all over the world. And if I was the Jehovah's Witness organization or the leaders, I'd be a bit concerned right now. I'd be concerned and waiting for that verdict that's coming in Norway and what's to come next. Well, folks, until next time, we keep telling the truth. We keep being honest with one another. We keep helping one another. We don't victimize people. We tolerate people. We encourage people. We tell people to love what they're doing. And if it means you like going to school and you want to go to higher education, you love learning, well, then do what you love. And if you love cooking and you're good at it, well, then do it. If you're a mechanic and you love fixing vehicles, then keep doing what you love. Because that's what Jesus says, life is about love. So folks, until next time, keep living your day with love. Bye for now. Okay. Well, what do you think? What's happening with Geoffrey Jackson? Well, I think he's been saying the same thing all along since the Australian arc. That was in 2015, 2016, 2015. And then in 2017, the Watchtower magazine confirmed that they're not inspired. And then this year at the annual talk, they made it quite real, and I guess because they had to cancel the time counting, they had to cancel a few things. So that's why they're making these changes. So we're going to look at the court costs in a bit here, but let's just talk about this for a bit. What's going on with Geoffrey Jackson? He seems to be the spokesman for getting up and saying, stop judging. Leave the judging up to Jesus and Jehovah. Well, it's really Jesus. They still hang on to the Jehovah thing, but Jesus is the judge. And when we really think about it, Jesus is the creator of the whole world. As Jehovah's Witnesses, we were taught from Colossians 1:1 that the first thing God made was Jesus, the Word. He made Jesus. It was a heavenly thing. And then through Jesus, everything came about. So Jesus is the creator. We knew that as Jehovah's Witnesses, but they don't really talk about it that way. They always say Jehovah this, Jehovah that, but Jesus is the creator. And even we did a video, Jesus says, I am the I am. I am the I am. That was the one that said, I am the I am to Abraham. So there's a whole discussion there. That's not what today is about. Today was about Norway. I think they're doing damage control. They don't want their people getting too upset around the world. I think they need Norway and the governments to look in on jw.org and see, this is a normal religion. Maybe we should give them their charity status. They're telling their people to honor us as governments. You see, could it be that ploy? You got to be careful with these religions, with this religion, because it seems to line things up. And let's look at another reason we got to be careful with this religion. This blew me away. Court costs. When have you ever gone into jw.org and type in, okay, I want to see the court costs for what they're spending in legal fees in a year? Could you imagine what those would be? Now, if you notice the court case, the courtroom, we're going to look, let's just look back here. And I'm going to look right about here. Ben Elder, where's Ben Elder talking? All the way over here, right here. I'm going to blow that up. Okay. So you see, I'll just get this a little bigger here for you. So right here, we're going to talk about these three guys here, the court costs. This is Risdale. And this guy here and this guy, these are Risdale's assistants. This is his team. They're worldly lawyers. Now, this guy here is, I think, the Watchtower lawyer. These two guys, maybe one's a translator. But there's one Watchtower lawyer. I'm not sure. I forget if it was this guy or this guy. And then this guy's Ben Elder. And then these guys in the back are all from Watchtower. And there's one woman here, not in the scene. Who's that? Yeah, the lady that we don't see, she's an administrative assistant. These guys are from Watchtower headquarters. Now, we're not even reviewing all those costs. For all those out there that are going to the Kingdom Hall and donating money to the Kingdom Hall, all these people had to be flown out to Norway. They all have to be put up. I'm sure they're staying in a hotel in Oslo. There's no way they're transferring them to people's houses. I doubt that. They're paying all kinds of fees. These guys are getting up, having breakfast. They got to go back to their hotel. It's court. It's private. This is not a social event. They'll keep the legal team as much away from the general Jehovah's Witness populace as they can. So, there's a lot of expenses going on here, flying all these people in. This guy flew in from Germany. These guys flew across the ocean. And this guy, all these guys, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. These lawyers here are wearing robes. Okay. So this guy's a lawyer too. There's a JW lawyer. And he's not even included in these court fees. Okay. So let's go. Let's look at the court fees. I'm going to get off the screen and we're going to run this through. It's 24 minutes. It's really interesting. This is recent news. This was just opened today. The Vartland News Agency in Norway ran this story on their newspaper. The whole world is seeing this stuff, so it's crazy. So let us see it here. Welcome back. Well, I hope you enjoyed the inspirational music. It's one of those days we feel inspirational. You know, the Norway court case is all over, and now all of the ripple effects, everything's coming out of the court case. So today we're going to look at the court costs. We all know lawyers are very expensive, but could you imagine opening up your newspaper and Jehovah's Witness lawyers cost 4 times more than the state's lawyer? Could you imagine that headline? It sounds like they're padding the books. Something's going on at Watchtower. Why would one lawyer's fees be way more than another lawyer's fee if there's kind of a going rate on this kind of stuff? Well, maybe that's what the newspaper's asking. We're going to look at that. This article is from the Vartland. And there's a picture of the JW lawyers. These are not JW lawyers. These are worldly lawyers. This is Risdell, this guy. And these are his 2 assistants. And I believe they're also worldly lawyers. They're not JWs. They were hired in. And we're going to take a look at what this cost the publishers. This is really costing the publishers. The reason we do this stuff is so the publishers are made aware of what the costs are. You're never going to see JW.org show these costs under their website. They're not going to show what the publishers are paying for, because that's why they're going out for more donations. You see, this is happening all over the world. It's just not in Norway, but this is a good example. Norway's, the court system, the way it runs there, they have to tell what the expenses are in court. So it becomes a public matter. So the newspaper grabbed a hold of this, thanks to Ron Pomo. He had it translated. It's from the Vartland news in Norway. And it says, Jehovah's Witnesses demand 4 times as much as the state in court. The lawyer's expenses. Now, if Jehovah's Witnesses win the lawsuit against the state, the religious community demands that legal costs be covered, which are far higher than the state's counterclaim. So that's quite interesting, eh? So now, stiff price. Jehovah's Witness lawyers have presented the religious community's claim for legal costs to the court, and the lion's share of the expenses accrue to the legal representative, Anders Risdell, this guy right here. He thinks he's worth a lot of money. Now, Jehovah's Witnesses submitted legal costs of NOK 4.3 million, that's the Norwegian dollars, which is about 414,000 US, linked to the ongoing lawsuit against the state. And the expenses have gone to 4 Norwegian lawyers the religious community has engaged, and the amount does not include VAT. What's VAT? Okay, so VAT is a value-added tax. It's kind of a European Union thing. So these numbers do not include the tax. And what is the tax? Okay, so the VAT is about 12% in Norway. So if we add 12% onto that 414,000, we're at about 465,000. And that's the number that the Norwegian or the JW.org, the organization, is going to have to pay to cover this, everyone that's contributing. they're going to have to contribute more. I don't know how they're going to get more out of people in Norway to cover that fee, but they'll figure out a way to do it. Maybe they'll sell a Kingdom Hall somewhere and just cover it. You know, the org has a lot of land. They actually took ownership of everything, so they could start selling off Kingdom Halls in Norway to pay for it, really. Well, they'd pay for it anyways, but who knows? But it's a lot of money, and it's important that the publisher, the average publisher, knows what's going on when it comes to these costs. Now, it says that the claim is more than 4 times as large as the state's claim, which is just over 1 million kroners. Now, Jehovah's Witness lawyers have logged a total of over 1,000 working hours compared to the state's approximately 600 hours. So what were they doing for 1,000 more hours? I don't know. Padding the books, having coffee. Or maybe they were going all over the world and bringing all these non-necessary case laws into this because the state was just trying to get them to submit to shunning, you know, quit your shunning policy. But yet they had to go out and make it look like the world's picking on Jehovah's Witnesses. So maybe that cost a lot more legal hours to build that kind of a case. I don't know. I don't think the government's buying it. That's why these things get reviewed. So here it is, the state's protests. The dispute between Jehovah's Witnesses and the state went before Oslo District Court on the 8th to the 19th, January last year. So this has been ongoing, folks. But you see, these court case, 414,000 is just for these last 10 days. What does it say? Jehovah's Witnesses have taken legal action against the state after the state administrator in Oslo and Viken in 2022 deprived Jehovah's Witnesses of state subsidies and registration as a religious community. So you see, Jehovah's Witnesses are taking the state to court. If they lose, they may have to pay all the fees. The civil disputes. It is common for the party who loses the court case to cover the other party's legal costs. So there you have it. When the demand from Jehovah's Witnesses was presented during the last day of the trial on Friday, government lawyer Christian Hallow objected to the demand and described it as a bit too high. She said that when imposing legal costs, the starting point should be usual rate for legal assistant, but there are exceptions for so-called particularly expensive assistance. But then one must also be able to expect that the number of hours will decrease, she said. You know, so if you get a good expert in there, he should be able to cover the case a lot quicker. But not the case here. According to her, that did not appear to be the case in this case. NOK 6,100 per hour, approximately 582 USD per hour. The lion's share of the expenses Jehovah's Witnesses are demanding to be covered goes to their legal representative in the case, Anders Risdell. He states that he charges an hourly rate of NOK 6,100 before VAT, before the 12% tax. And in the accounts he submitted to the court, he invoiced NOK 300,000, 28,655 USD for work he had done before the summons was delivered. So he did 28,000 US in work prior, probably going around the world figuring out all this case law that is not even applicable to the case. It's kind of what they did there. Now, the NOK 1.7 million for the time between the summons and the trial, and NOK 500,000 for the 2 weeks the trial lasted. Huh. So there you go. There's a lot of money there. In total, therefore, Risdell is expected to be paid NOK 2.5 million, which is about 238,797 USD. Not bad for 10 days work, you know, no expenses, just maybe stayed in a hotel and ate, got up and used his laptop. It's not bad money. Now, that's what he used. That's what it cost to prosecute the case. That's 238,000, $250,000 US. While the remaining NOK 1.8 million, which is 171,934 USD, is distributed among the 3 legal assistants. So that would be those other 2 blonde guys and maybe the JW lawyer, maybe. Don't know. In addition to the Norwegian lawyers, the International Organization Association of Jehovah's Witnesses for the protection of religious freedom has been involved as a legal advisor, although Ben Elder is not a lawyer. He's a tradesman, welder or something. He mumbled it. Welder or something like that, tradesman. Now, during the ongoing trial, the organization had several representatives in the courtroom. One of the organization's representatives, Ben Elder, whom Vartland interviewed last week, was also a bystander in the trial. And however, this organization's expenses are not included in the accounts presented to the court. So they didn't even include Ben Elder's costs in here. So to all those publishers out there contributing, well, Ben Elders had to fly in from Germany, so there's expenses there. Be interesting to see if these guys fly first class or if they fly coach. You know, that would change your plane ticket quite a bit. Oh, by the way, thanks for those that joined buying us a coffee. You just have to join below all our videos and you buy us a coffee once a month. So thank you very much. Now, so he was a bystander in the trial. This guy, he wasn't even supposed to be there. They just swung him in last minute, maybe. That's what it looked like to me. The judge didn't know anything about this guy. Asked the guy, you know, where are you from? Do you have any legal criteria? Ben Elder, you know, we showed that on our show. Now, Vartland asked Jehovah's Witnesses how much the total cost of the legal aid they have received are and whether they have any comments on the legal costs. So the newspaper went to the Jehovah's Witnesses and asked them. Neither Jehovah's Witnesses nor lawyer Andrew Risdell have answered the inquiries. I wonder why. They're 4 times higher. Way above the average. So Jehovah's Witnesses don't want to talk about it. It's good we get this out to you guys, the publishers that are paying the bills, but it's a way above average you're paying for. Now, this guy, I'm not even going to try to say his name, Germund Asprin, maybe that's how you say it, is a doctoral candidate in the jurisprudence at the Arctic University of Norway. He's a doctoral candidate and specializes in legal costs. So they brought a guy in that does this. And he has previously worked as a judge and assisted the Judicial Commission, which in 2020 presented a public report on the future organization of the court. Now, he does not want to comment specifically on the legal costs in this case, but says that the high costs can be seen in the context of a problematic trend. So maybe Jehovah's Witnesses got away with this before. They go to Supreme Court, they win, they charge the court all this money, or whoever took them to court, or however that all works. And they got used to getting it. That's what this shows. It's a trend, a problematic trend. Jehovah's Witnesses are padding the books on these court cases. So he goes on to point to the statistics that show that Jehovah's Witnesses demands are far above average, like they're 4 times. And in the Judicial Commission's investigation, it appears that the average for awarded case costs in the district court in 2018 was NOK 300,000. That's about 28,000 USD measured in today's krone values. That's the average cost, 28,000 to get through court. And these guys were at $500,000 USD. So normally it costs 28,000 to get through their court system. However, the figure can be somewhat misleading as most dispute cases take far fewer days than the case in question. Available statistics on legal costs per court day show in any case that Jehovah's Witnesses claims are far higher than what is usually awarded. Now, divided by the number of court days, Jehovah's Witnesses demand NOK 478,000, which is $45,658 per day. That's what they want for being there. And they took the state to court. So they took the state to court. They want the 50 million krones? Or no, it's 500,000, 500,000 krones they're suing the state for. They want all the charity money banked up from 3 years. So they're suing the state for this. They took the state to court. And now they want the state to pay a 4 times higher legal bill. It sounds like they're padding the books. Is that honest? Well, the court's saying it's not even legal. I don't think it's legal. Now, here's what, let's carry on. Now, can prevent citizens access to the court. I don't know if that's worded right in the translation, but it says the figures also show a drastic increase in legal costs in recent years. From 2009 to 2018, the awarded case cost increased by 92% over and above the general increase in prices. According to Aspirin, this trend has only continued in recent years, and he believes that is the cause for concern. So it's, the cause for concern is that these companies like Watchtower are padding the books. They're making these court cases a lot more expensive than they should be. This creates a different trend. If Jehovah's Witnesses get their way in this court, they'll try to get their way all over the world. So it's good that this court is really bringing them to light. And they don't even want to comment on this. They're so embarrassed padding the bill that high. Now, the problem is not that the lawyers earn more money. It says we have a freedom of business and lawyers are basically free to take what they want for their assignments. But the problem arises when the levels become so high that in practice, they prevent citizens from accessing the court. So this is what's happening. The costs are getting way too high. If you took Jehovah's Witnesses to court, the message they're put out is going to cost you half $500,000 US. You're going to have to pay our fees because you're going to lose. We have the best lawyers. That's the message they're putting out. The problem is this is creating too high of a bar for the average person to go to court. Now in the US, it's gone crazy. I was doing some research on Matt Haverstick and some of these high-end lawyers that will litigate and go right after the Senate, right after the government. Those guys are worth upwards of $2,000 an hour in the States, in the US. And this is how, there's no really limits put on this stuff. It's just they charge whatever they can get, what the market will bear. And obviously they're getting $2,000 an hour to fight these CSA cases for the Catholic diocese against the government. They're fighting the government to maintain clergy penitent privilege. That costs a lot of money. It's a pretty slimy business, in my opinion. And in my opinion, no money would be worth that business. But it is to the lawyers. So the problem is not that the lawyers earn more money. We have freedom of business. Lawyers are basically free to take what they want. Now, do you think that this is also problematic for religious and life view communities and voluntary organizations? Good question. Newspapers posing this. Is this fair for the publisher that has to contribute and dig deeper into his pocket that month to cover all these religious costs or these costs in court? Are they going to go out and whine to their people and say, we spent all this and the state's now charging us for all the legal costs and we're victims and poor us? You see, this is what this religion is doing. But this court is turning this upside down. It says this is problematic for everyone who needs to use courts and who has a limited financial resource by making the price higher, padding the books. Aspirin states, however, that it's not at all certain that Jehovah's Witnesses will be able to cover the entire amount, even if they were to win the case. Interesting. The Dispute Act states that you can demand to be covered for what is normally necessary to get adequate legal aid. And if the court finds that Jehovah's Witnesses has spent more than this, they risk having to pay the excess themselves. So this is what could happen. The court says, no, we did it in 600 hours. We're going to allot you guys 600 hours, and that's it. And maybe they'll bring the cost down and say, we're just going to give you so much to fight this. And if you guys have all those extra costs, you're going to have to pay it yourselves. Like if the state loses. So if the state loses, they'll have to cover the fees, but they're not going to give them their $500,000. narrow that down. That's what this is saying. And that's what they can do. They can tax. They call what they do is they tax the court costs. And it's like another court case looking at what this should be worth. So they have to fight. It's all fighting. That's what litigation is. Jehovah's Witnesses just love litigation. They love it. They love it, and they're in litigation all over the world. The founder of this religion today. Now, put aside Russell. He's not the founder of it. The apostate that took over the original religion from Russell is Judge Rutherford. They call him Judge Rutherford, and he only served as a temporary judge on a couple of occasions, 3 or 4 times. And did you know that when they're building a lawyer, making a lawyer, they actually get him to serve as a judge? Just it's part of the training. It's part of the legal training, and he did that, and he liked it. He liked the feeling of the power, Judge Rutherford. So when he got out and got into the religion and did all the legal business for Jehovah's Witness religion, Rutherford, he said to everyone, "Call me Judge Rutherford." What a narcissist. He was not even a judge. It was part of his legal training. But yet he demanded to be called Judge Rutherford in the religion. So to this day, the Jehovah's Witnesses all over the world, they refer to him as Judge Rutherford. They give him that credence. He doesn't deserve it. He's an apostate of Russell. He stole the religion and changed it. And he made all the bearded Russellites an outcast. And everyone in his religion had to be clean shaven. But today they're allowing beards, and the organization is making changes. So kind of looks like they're moving away from some of the things, counting time. But in this court case, they're sticking to their shunning. They are protecting their shunning. They're defending their shunning. They're spending $500,000 US trying to defend shunning. Black art shunning. It's black art. It's medieval. Society in today's world has changed. It's not like that. And even the level of shunning that they do in that religion is not scriptural. There's no scriptural support to shun people for life, any of that stuff. They have made their own rules. And that's why the world is looking at this as a cult, follower of men. The Bible doesn't support the way they shun. But yet, millions of Jehovah's Witnesses around the world are donating to this cause to defend shunning in court. So the only way, I think, to stop this is you guys. You guys are on the inside, the Jehovah's Witnesses. If you like shunning, empty your accounts, empty your bank accounts into the Watchtower org. They'll use it. If you're against shunning, in your mind, you don't agree with it. You don't agree with all this. Quit donating. You see, if you quit donating, you quit feeding this. Because when you're donating, you become culpable. You are now culpable for what this religion is hiding. They're spending millions of dollars to hide shunning and CSA and this evil blood doctrine. There's about 3 things that this religion is nailed for as being a cult. It's very clear. For 100 and some years, they outlawed beards. And then all of a sudden, one day they say it's okay. You see, that's a telltale sign of a cult. For 100 and some years, we've been following men. Because all of a sudden, it's okay to have beards. And then they bring Russell back into it, the guy that Rutherford threw out. They bring him back and make him look like he's a hero. And for all those years, Jehovah's Witnesses made the bearded Russellites look evil. What a twisted religion. When you get out and you look in on it, it's a twisted religion. It's all full of twists. So my advice is get out while you can. Don't waste any more time. So what are we going to do now? We're going to dance. We're going to throw some inspirational music on, and we're going to dance out of this. Okay, well, we'll see you guys next time. Okay. Well, now the comments. So I put those two, there were two topics. I put them together as two separate videos. And the reason we want to release them separately, get them out there, is this Norway thing is important. It's worldwide. Your comments on these live chats are so important. Government people could be scanning these. They're looking at us. We've been raised now as an extremist. We've been raised in court now, us activists, as evil people. And now this is in the courts, so now it's time to take action. It's time for us to speak out. And through the courts, through the governments, who Geoffrey Jackson said is run by Jehovah, which you and I know, if we follow the Bible, that's what it says. It's always said that. Judge Rutherford wanted him to be the judge, and he took away Jesus' truth, usurped Jesus' truth, Judge Rutherford. And he was a litigator, so he knew how to do it scripturally. And he knew how to litigate this into many Watchtower volumes and make the volumes part of the litigation to the Bible. So he'd litigate the Bible, print up a Watchtower to back his litigation, and that became doctrine, that became law within the Watchtower religion. And the Watchtower religion is very much designed around a legal system. So if you have an issue, I had an issue civilly with other brothers in business. So right away, we had to pull out the Watchtower volumes. And let's say we found 3 or 4 articles over the whole span of the bound volumes, because they went way back in them days. And but they'd take the most current, because they would say, well, the most current actually squashes the law. It's like Supreme Court, right? So as laws change, they write a new Watchtower to back their new ruling. It's litigation, folks. I don't know how to explain it, but it's Judge Rutherford's litigation. Do you think Jesus meant that the Bible should be litigated by volumes and volumes and volumes and like the Watchtower volumes stack up to the sky? There's a pile of them. Imagine all the millions of trees. If you look behind me, the forests, the deforestation that happened over the last 100 years just for the Watchtower. And they've never planted a damn tree. Never. Because the new system's coming, and that's God's problem. God's problem is the wicked system. It's Satan's problem, really. You blame it all on Satan. But yet here's the Watchtower burying dangerous chemicals in the ground. They got caught at their Watchtower farms. We've done videos on that, and there's lots of articles on that. And they got caught. And that's why you got to destroy records. Destroy records because you can get caught on records. Some shipping record from the printery over to the farms probably got them in trouble there. And oh no, we don't know of it. And in the newspaper, they claim they knew nothing. And then the newspaper people sent, or the county of the Watchtower Farms sent in a crew, because it was leaching down to the river, all these chemicals, and they had a big dugout, and they were just throwing all kinds of stuff in a big dugout. And then they covered the dugout over, buried it up, because laws change, right? As time goes on, laws change. So this goes back to kind of Rutherford type days, or Nor for sure, when those farms came into existence. And they had the farm there for a reason, folks. It saved them millions in getting rid of hazardous chemicals. And then all of a sudden their sawmill burns down. We don't know any. Here's an organization that has fire. I went in and put all kinds of fire systems into their Bethels. They have all that. But yet their sawmill burns down and they have no way of putting it out. So the county had to come in and put the damn sawmill out. What kind of evidence did they burn in that sawmill? That's what I ask. Receipts? All those loose receipts. They just probably hauled in van loads. And I'm being a conspiracy theorist now. I have no proof for any of this. But you know how your mind goes? You see what Watchtower is doing to our brains? They're giving us a clear message that they are crooked. If they're going to fix the books and try to get 4 times the costs in court, what else is this organization up to? We know they're hiding CSA left and right. It's like a criminal. There's a side to this organization that looks warm and fuzzy on the outside when the people knock at your door. I remember when I was knocking at your door, it was pretty warm and fuzzy. I had no idea. I had no idea when I was knocking at your door that they were burying chemicals at the Watchtower Farms. I had no idea they were giving these private little talks on how to destroy records because they're getting caught in court with these records. I had no idea when I was knocking on your door. You see, if the organization can segregate the legal people, what's going on legally in court, keep that all quiet, which they have been successful for since Rutherford. Like, they've been winning lots of court cases, changing rules in countries, and sometimes good rules. They've been serving as an instrument. God says he will use whatever on earth to serve as his instrument. The Watchtower has served an instrument to change rules, but now the Watchtower doesn't like those rules that they helped change. Yeah, they're crying for human rights, human rights, human rights. Poor us, poor us, poor us. We need more human rights. And now they have to live by it. All these rights that they fought to, they have to now uphold them because the can's getting opened. Their can of worms is getting opened. Their can of maggots is what it is. And that's what it is. Anthony Morris called us the maggots. So you know what happens? Law of attraction, or you reap what you sow. Jesus said that be careful what you throw out there, because it's going to come back and smack you right across the head. And that's what the governing body threw that out worldwide. And they went one talk after another to make us evil. And for a lot of us, like I got outside and I've learned so much about the Bible within this community. You want to learn a lot? Go on to J and Hess. Did I get that mixed up? Scott, J and Hess, something like that. J Hess and Scott, two guys that Rick Fearon hosts, marvelous guys. You want to know about the Bible? There's some good guys. They're ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, and they kind of both go in a little bit different direction, but it's all flowing. We're all flowing down the river together. And you can look at the shoreline. You can both look at the shoreline, and you can both see something different. And that's what we have to realize, folks. There's not one single truth, except I do have the truth. You know what it is. I've been saying it all along. I didn't know I had the truth all these years I've been on this show, all these years on video. But today I do know I have the truth. And it's love. Love. God equals love. So if God equals love, the energy of love, I think we need to explore that more. We've been exploring a lot of other things, but love has different facets. You notice that? And if God is equal to that, equal to the energies of love, there's all these different facets, diamonds, whatever. We're going to talk about this more in the show. Because if that's what it's all about, that is the truth. Why do I know? Because, and you don't need a stack of Watchtower volumes. Judge Rutherford knew this. He knew it was simple, but he wanted to take that away from Jesus. See, Judge Rutherford, he wanted the truth. He wanted the Watchtower to be the truth. He wanted to make it like a courtroom. And if you wonder why Jehovah's Witnesses are in the courtroom so much, is because that is the design of the religion. That's what they've been taught. It's been passed down generation to generation. You see, they venerate, they honor, they idolize Rutherford. They do. If you don't believe me, if you have an old Revelation book, the old red Revelation book, we were forced to study that inhumane book 3 times. My little kids had to study that book and learn about the wild beast and the governments and how wicked they are. But in that book, you will see Rutherford blowing the trumpets. All the angels blowing the trumpets, they linked them to all of Rutherford's assemblies. And they believed that. We were brainwashed. They programmed that into us 3 times. And Rutherford was the big idol. He was it. He was it. I remember some of the people talking about their folks. Well, their grand folks went down to that assembly, and the book study would get all excited and talk about these assemblies of Rutherford, all about Rutherford. They venerated, they honored, they idolized Rutherford. So Rutherford enjoyed that. He drove a Cadillac through the hungry 30s. It was the hungry 30s. All the farmers, all the peasants across the US, across Canada, they were all starving, walking away from their farms, but they were giving their last nickel because it was 5 cents to get the Watchtower thing. And I don't know how much it was for a subscription, but they were big on selling subscriptions. And it was all for sale. Thanks for the coffee, by the way. We've now went from no-name instant coffee, because we drink instant coffee, by the way, folks. And my wife picked up some Maxwell House instant coffee, and it's quite nice. It's not as sharp. And then you always can have a hot coffee when you want. You know, it's just a little teaspoon. It's dried. It's easy to have a coffee in the truck, you know, if you want. My dad was a trucker, so he that's what he would do. He had a little heater, thermos heater, and he'd just have instant coffee. You know, you could save so much with instant coffee. You can buy a whole jar of coffee like for $5 up here in Canada. And you can have a lot of coffees off that. But if you started buying coffees at every truck stop, holy smokes, you'd go broke. Seriously, you go broke. Anyways, that's my coffee tip for today, folks. Instant coffee is not that bad. What were we talking about? Rutherford. Rutherford's an interesting character because that's where all of the whole legal organization comes from Rutherford, if you follow the history on it. And we do have podcasts on this on our channel. We haven't done any lately because we got busy with all this news and stuff, but there's some interesting podcasts there on Rutherford. And if you really want to know about Rutherford, there's one of the channels on our XGW community, and it's called Watchtower something, and it's Watchtower History. So if you plugged Watchtower History in, these guys have about 40 videos on Rutherford. Rutherford's a very, very interesting character to read about and study on. Narcissist to the 10th degree. And but it's interesting, the organization. I followed the Rutherford. I was in the Rutherford trance for 30 years. I was under it. It's a trance. It's a spell, an illusion. And we get under that illusion, and it becomes so real to the point that we shave. Jesus has a beard. We see it in everything. All their dramas, they have these clip-on beards. We knew they all wore beards. There's nothing in the Bible. When I asked about beards, they said, well, it shows your obedience to the faithful slave, is what they said. And the circuit overseer, you know, whatever. He said, they played games with this beard thing all those years. And how do you feel as an audience to be toyed with? You know, like as pawns. That's what it is. We're pawns, and we're just, you know, you could die, you know, for the blood. As long as you die for the blood transfusion thing, you're good. You're a hero. They'll make a hero out of you in the Watchtower. Maybe if it's a big case. If it's not, you just died for nothing. But it's not the way to die, telling you. So the Rutherford, he drove a Cadillac while all the farmers everyone was walking away from their farms through the hungry 30s. The narcissist, his wife left him. He was so narcissistic. When he got power shortly after she left, couldn't live with him. And it's been reported he had built that shrine down in San Diego, that he had 7 little huts around it with women in there. He called them maids and stuff like that. But we all know what he was up to. The Rutherford dance, the Rutherford trance. And they had to pull him off the stage drunk a lot of times. He was a drinker. So that's the founder of the religion. I think, you know, no one really talks about it, but it's out there. The history's out there. And it's interesting. So the organization goes forward. They form a governing body. The governing body is now Rutherford. The governing body is the new idol. And if you have to die for something, You're not dying for Jesus with that blood transfusion. Jesus never ever got involved in anything like that. And I have a blood video on, it's a big red video, blood, it'll explain it in one video. It's not scriptural. In fact, the Apostle Paul said you can go into the meat market and you can buy meat with byproducts in it, and you can eat it with a clean conscience. Just don't let a Jew see you. As long as the Jews don't know, you're okay. That's what they said. You know, it's like, okay, it's like this. Long as the elders don't see you, you're okay. You know, let's say you drank too much, right? So not coffee, but let's say you drank too much alcohol. Alcohol's allowed in the Jehovah's Witness religion. So if you drink too much alcohol and it's a closed party, let's say you invited another family over, some people you hang out with, you know, not elders. There's no elders. There could be pioneers and servants, could be, but no elders. You never invite an elder to your group unless they're cool elders. I knew a couple cool elders. I used to go over to their place and they'd throw wicked parties. The cool elders. The cool elders would pull out the alcohol, boy. And they, long as everyone stays in, no one's driving, it's okay. I have a couple beds upstairs, go crash. The cool elders, goes down to the wine cellar, pulls up more wine, feeds the party a bit. There's some cool elders out there when I was around. And did they stay? No, they all got deleted. I don't know why. They were the cool elders, but they got deleted, the ones I knew. Ah, good old days, eh? No, it's not the good old days. That's just the way it was. So if you drank too much, long as it's not public, long as there's no public scene. So if you were on a bar, you know, on the main street of your community, and there's the bar, let's say, or we have what we call White Avenue. You know, it's all the cool place. All the kids go there. It never closes down until 4 a.m. when the janitors come in and clean up all the vomit and stuff in the back alleys. Who wants to go party out there? Anyways, but some of these young Jehovah's Witnesses go out there and they're curious, right? They want to go out there and party, and they get caught, or they do it for the first time and they get totally drunk. They make them a scene. And this is the problem. When there's too many strict rules, no one, you know, these kids, it's black or white. And then they break the envelope. They go into White Avenue and they get into trouble, and they're on the news. And the next thing you know, they're disfellowshipped because they're on the news. It was okay to get drunk because the elders do it all the time at home. But you can't get drunk in public. And that it says it right in the elders book. We've researched that. So it does make sense. So Jehovah's Witnesses, they don't want a public reproach brought upon their name. So the headlines say Jehovah's Witness drunk on White Avenue caused a scene. They don't want that because it really makes their religion look bad. So now what do they have? They have Jehovah's Witnesses hiding sex crimes. Jehovah's Witnesses pad the legal bill 4 times in Norway. Jehovah's Witnesses are suing the victims of their religion. These are the headlines, folks, that we're dealing with out there. And it's crazy. I think it's crazy. What do you guys think? Let's look at the comments. What do we have? Very bottom, this one. The Kingdom Hall I was in, the elders would get promoted. It sounds like you and I were in the same hall. As long as they bowed down to the GB rule, they were untouchable. Isn't that something, eh? Crazy religion we were in. I don't know, some of you guys might still be in it, but I just think back and think it was crazy. It was just nuts. And the more you learn, the more you see all the twists. See, what they can't hide right now is the court stuff. They can't hide the online stuff. The court itself broadcasted at like 1 a.m. our time. We had to get up at 1 a.m. and watch this And it was all day, 8 hours of a broadcast. And then they held it there for 3 hours. So it gives guys like us time to record all of this. And we still have the recordings in Norway, so Norwegian, but we're still, if anybody out there knows of how to get the CC caption on there, a good programmer, cheap way to do it for free. Everybody wants paid for it, of course, but we're working on it. And we're not the only ones working on it. There's, some others out there working on this. So we do have as much as we can get out there in English through translation. But eventually this will be, this whole court case, the 2 days anyways, the final 2 days without the witnesses, will be broadcasted to the world. And it'll show the world how much time Jehovah's Witnesses waste in court on nonsense, making themselves look like victims. They're not dealing with the issues. They're not dealing with the issues of the victims. You see, rather than looking at the victims as their enemies, all of the other religions out there are looking at the victims and apologizing. They're all and they're making recompense. The Catholic Church, they have rewrote how they're running their religion. I don't know. They probably still have priests and all that stuff, and I don't recommend any of it, not on our channel. But I'm not saying it's all bad. I just don't recommend it because it's all organized. And very little of your donated dollar actually goes to the cause. With the Jehovah's Witness, none of it goes to the cause. It goes to pay out legal fees. The Catholics are paying out legal fees. They're going to take that money from you guys, from us, and the taxpayers. The Mormons, they're doing the same thing. I haven't seen the Seventh-day Adventists, though. But Mormons, Jehovah's Witness, and Catholics, or the Catholic Church. Not the people, but the church, these priests and whatever's going on in the JW religion and the Mormon religion. It's kind of like the Catholics, the bishops are hiding it. They're in politics is the problem with these big religions. And we don't want to mention some religions because you can get in trouble online for even mentioning their names. So all I can really talk about with experience is Jehovah's Witnesses, and that's what I specialize in on this channel. So if you're not a Jehovah's Witness and you're looking in, well, it's because I was one, and that's what I have knowledge in. So that's what I feel I can speak about on this channel with knowledge. The rest I read about it, the Catholic Church part, well, my wife is Catholic, baptized, so we can talk about that freely. We have knowledge in our house. My dad was an altar boy, and I don't even want to get into his stories. He left that, and he has nothing to do with religion after that journey. And he called the priest a homosexual. That's what he did. He said, yeah, I shouldn't have said that online, but that's what he called the priest in that community. And he taught us kids not to have anything to do with the priest. So we didn't. That was the way it was. We just farmed and grew up, and they actually got married in a Protestant church. My mom was from a Protestant faith. It was a United Church, so they got married in that. And we had an experience as kids. We went to Sunday school through the United Church, and it was a lot of fun. You'd go to the basement, and I remember as a little kid, they would tell all these Bible stories. But when we went home, we didn't have any of that stuff, so you really didn't, it was kind of like new, and you'd go home and you'd forget all about it. And you wouldn't go to church every Sunday. You might go once a month, depending on how the farm went. So, and then that only happened, I remember, for maybe a year or two, and then no religion at all. That's kind of how I grew up. I started learning about the religion when I was about 18 years old. So I was what they call a convert. So I think there's a lot of advantages to being a convert. Is you can get into it, and when you get out, it's very easy to leave it. Whereas if you're raised in it, well, then you have all those that ideology inculcated from birth. And this is why we're fighting for the children, because the children have rights, hopefully some rights, In the Jehovah's Witness religion, if they had it their way and that child needed blood or anything, blood treatment, they would die. Like the parents would choose that. But that's why this religion is being examined worldwide. So, folks, that's about all I have to say on this. Let's look at some of the comments. If you have anything that you want to come online and talk about, if you have something you want to say, we can send you a link. You can come on these chats live and talk. If anybody's out there that wants to, just come on the chat line and say, hey, I'd like to come on. But the best place to come on and tell your story is Wednesday nights. And Wednesday nights, Joe and Fran host on our channel. They host a live, and you can come on and talk and tell your story. And that's the best place to do it. If you want to come on to our program, the best is to send my good wife an email. Go onto our website, email us if you have some particular subject that you want to get into. That's what I like. If you want to go somewhere, I'm not really the kind of guy that wants to tell the story or something, but if you want to talk about the validity of Jehovah, or where did Jehovah come from? Did he come from a Canaanite god or some source like that? I'm interested in that stuff. And I welcome you to come on the show and let's chat about it. So it's easy that way, as well as on Saturdays, we have we don't advertise this enough, but if you go down below, I don't know if we have it, XJW Recovery. We don't show the link, but if you email my good wife and you want to be part of an XJW Recovery group, it's a closed group, just like this. We'll come on and you can have up to 6 people on. You don't have to, but it's not recorded, it's not broadcasted. It's just a group that gets on like a Zoom, but we're using the StreamYard, the same as a lot of the creators are using now. And it's easy to come on and chat about it. And you can come on and not show your face, but we talk about XJW Recovery. So we're using the book from XJW Diaries. Justin put together a really good handbook, and that's what we're going through. I'm going through it myself for my own benefit. And I'm finding that the group is helping me to understand some stuff. So some of the group out there has actually taken some professional therapy, and they really actually know their stuff. And they know a lot more than they think. But it helps me as well to keep recovering from being an XJW. I just couldn't afford the therapy. I didn't think I needed therapy, to be quite honest. But retrospects, we do need something, because the inculcation is quite deep, especially if you're born in. So that's about it. I think it's time to put on our whistling caps. So that's what we have is a whistling cap, and we'll turn up the lights. Oh yeah, ooh, smokes! It's bright out there. Sun's out. It's really bright out. I'm going to get up and start whistling. You going to whistle with me? Okay, let's call her a day. Well, we thank you guys for being on the show, and appreciate all your comments. You guys are a great audience, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Tuesday, Monday, we might go Mondays now, I think. Monday night, we might go. We have the Wednesday night show, and we might keep doing this Thursday at 1. And then we have the Saturday XJW Recovery group, as well as there's a Discord channel. It's on all of our videos. You just go into the description. You can click the link, and it's a Discord channel. And the invite's there, and it's a closed group. If you know anything about Discord, the gamers use it quite a bit. There's little robots in there that can translate. Even if you're another language and you want to be part of the group, it'll translate for you. So it's quite an interesting concept, and it's growing rapidly. We just started it, but it's growing rapidly. So we invite you in there. So thanks again, folks. And until next time, keep living your day with love. Bye for now.